Iowa football has landed a commitment, a big guy for them. And Iowa basketball still shopping. Roster isn't set. We break it down today. Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit that subscribe button. Just takes a moment and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Well, I've been covering the Iowa Hawkeyes for over 20 years. Glad to have you aboard with me here on Locked On Hawkeyes. And you can hear me currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network talking the world of sports each weekday from noon to 2. Today, we are going to get into the House settlement case, how it pertains to Iowa football, Iowa basketball, Iowa athletics as a whole. We'll jump into that a little bit later on. David Eicholt is going to join us from 24/7 Sports. We'll talk Hawkeye recruiting and a little bit more coming up with David Eicholt. But we begin today with the lifeblood that is college athletics, and that is recruiting, as Iowa has landed their 10th commitment for the class of 2026 on the Iowa football staff, and that is with defensive lineman Sawyer Jazerski. So Jazerski comes in from Minnesota, Edina, three-star prospect from most of the recruiting services, had scholarship offers from places like Kansas State, Washington State, Boston College, and then a bunch of FCS programs also involved. Also had an Army offer, and when you see that Army offer, you know that's a guy that's pretty good academically usually on that front. 6'4", 275. Looks like this is going to be a guy that I was going to look that they're going to try to build into a defensive tackle. And, you know, with this commitment and the defensive tackle position, and we saw Iowa was able to go into the portal this past season and bring in 2 defensive tackles. But we also know that this is a position that is one of the most important and most expensive in the transfer portal. So 2 years ago, Iowa tried to add some depth to defensive tackle and weren't able to do it just because of the cost. There was a kid from Wyoming that ended up in Texas, and the price range for him, Iowa sniffed around and found out very quickly that that wasn't going to be the case. And I think this kind of goes hand in hand with something that we've heard Ben McCullum allude to and talk about on the basketball front, and what we found out in the transfer portal for them at the center position. Those big guys, just how expensive they are, and with it, how difficult it is to navigate the waters in order to make that happen. And I do wonder if maybe this goes kind of in line with what I was thinking. You know, they went out and got Bryce Hawthorne, and we continue to hear great things about him, the South Dakota State transfer. Pace is going to be able to come in and help them out, the Central Michigan guy. But knowing what it costs to go in the portal, if I was going to be looking maybe even deeper at a position like defensive tackle, that this is going to be a developmental position, that this is going to be a position, maybe we add an extra scholarship or 2 compared to what we once did, and those developmental guys that we think are going to be able to help out. Now, one thing that I absolutely love with Jazerski is the production that he had. Defensive tackle, yes, being a disruptor in the middle, right? Taking up space, doing those kind of things that you want to see. But even at the high school level, as a junior, to have 21 tackles for loss in 9 games played, I think that says a whole lot about them. You look at the class now for Iowa in the class of 2026. They have 3 out of their 10 prospects that are rated as 4-star athletes from on 3. Carson Nielsen, who's probably the headliner, the kid from Waterloo, West High School, 6'7", 275, incredibly good feet, nationally regarded, a big level guy. And though he's been committed now for 14 months, maybe that takes some of the shine away. Carson Nielsen is a guy that was coveted. This was going to be a guy that was going to have those big-time Midwest offers, wanted to be a Hawkeye, made the decision very early. Hudson Parliament, great name, South Dakota guy, another offensive lineman, probably more interior for Hudson Parliament, 6'4", 285, also listed as a 4-star. And then another offensive lineman, Gene Reardon from Illinois. So those are kind of the headliners of this class. Also want to throw into the mix Marcelo Viti, a safety, little bit undersized from Michigan, but really love him. And a guy that you look at He feels like that could be a guy that is going to be able to help out right away in special teams. And of course, the quarterback, Cash Herrera, 6'3", 207 from San Diego, a place that Iowa does not recruit very often, but been a lot of buzz about Cash Herrera, what he's been doing here in the circuit. Iowa was looking around, looking at a couple of different guys also in that class, but those are some of the headliners for the class of 2026. But I do want to go one other direction as it pertains to recruiting and what we're going through here. And that is with Iowa on the basketball front. So as we've talked about, basketball has begun. We've been talking a whole lot about this basketball program. So first, the numbers are out. Numbers are out for the roster right now. And it felt like we were pretty well set, right? Peyton McCullum coming in. We talked about his decision and Ben McCullum's decision to bring his son in. He's on the roster. But then seeing the numbers with the names, Bennett Sturt's going to be wearing 14. Okay, no surprise. Trevin Urach, 27. An odd number. All right, Trev, going to go with 27 for the big man in the middle. Fulgaris wearing number 7. That's cool. Cooper Kachi word of that. But that doesn't matter in the green scheme of things, right? We're still looking for Iowa as if there was going to be any more done. And a couple of weeks ago, Josh Sash, he was on a podcast with Tom Kakert from Hawkeye Report. He talked a little bit about they still had money. They still had money to spend. And there's been a couple of names that have been jumping up. Well, the latest one is also coming in, is also a name from Robert Morris, and that's where Fulgaris came in from. So this Josh Omojafo, I think that's how it is. We're going to get a little more insight into this from David Eicholt coming up here in just a little bit. But a guy that a season ago at Robert Morris, a team played in the NCAA tournament, they pushed in their first round game against Alabama, played incredibly well in that one. This guy, Omojafo, he averaged 11.5 points last year, had 12 in that game against Alabama, 4 rebounds and assists in that matchup there. A 6'5" guard, 200 pounds, played at D2 his first couple of seasons and really emerged as the season went on, including in the conference championship game where he had 24 points in that one for Robert Morris. Nothing definitive. And one thing to also put in the back of your mind, he's a Canadian kid. And as we've been finding out this week with the House settlement that came down last Friday, things are going to look different for international players. How that's going to work with the new sharing, the rev sharing that's going to be happening. How does that pertain to them and the student visas that international students have? So maybe that's a reason you can pump the brakes a little bit. We'll get a little bit more insight from David Eicholt about Josh Omojafo. And hopefully I have that name right. We'll see on that front. We continue and we'll talk with David Eicholt. We'll talk some football, those big news, what's happening with basketball recruiting and a whole lot more. David Eicholt joins us from 24/7 Sports. That's next on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Well, the NBA Finals are here every night, delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game. Before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Tyrese Halliburton, he's got the local connection. Of course, he played for the other team, that team out west. Are we doing that? Tyrese Halliburton, though, hey, you can look at the numbers, and there are a plentiful number of them on the FanDuel app. You want to go higher, lower, up, down, you can do that with Halliburton. You can watch the game as it's happening and then decide to jump aboard with the same game parlay. That's right. You don't have to wait and do it pregame. Now live in the game, same game parlays and a $200 bonus bet added into the excitement if your $5 bet hits. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time for you to sign up. What you want to do is head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Welcome to the program. Grateful for you coming on as always, David Eicholt. And I guess we start with you, the kind of the news of the week, right? That hit late last week, the House settlement over the weekend. Everybody's had at least, period of time to digest it. Well, at least when we think we've got it all covered, then Trent throws out today, well, what about schools, basketball-only schools? Creighton, Gonzaga, Big East schools, seemingly, since they don't have to split that pot amongst football, does that give them a leg up? And were the powers that be taking that into mind when they decided how this was going to be put down and put into action?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of layers with that question, though, too. But, I mean, I'll go back to a conversation I think we had 2 or 3 months ago on this show, and that's when West Virginia people were arguing that they're almost just as good of a job as Creighton. And I sat back laughing my butt off, and I'm like, guys, Creighton's the top 5 job right now.
Yeah.
And it at least top 10. I mean, you think about, like you said, with the house settlement and all this coming into light, which I think we all kind of thought this is the direction it was going. What about UConn basketball? I mean, do you really think that they care about football? Yeah, they have a football program, but kind of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, UConn's going to be a staying power. Butler, I think, could have a lot of money as well. I mean, Creighton, those schools that don't traditionally throw money into football or don't have a football program, I think they're going to be near the top. I mean, how many high-level impact transfers did Greg McDermott get this year at Creighton? I don't even want to know the kind of money that they're playing with. And then, of course, you have Texas Tech with the oil company. There's a CBS Sports article basically came out, I believe, a couple of days ago. They talked about how they have like a $55 million athletics roster across the board. I mean, I think that's the most of any program in the country at this point. It's going to be interesting. I do think that this is a good step in the right direction of getting some sort of consistency. But now come the lawsuits, and now comes the appeals, right? I mean, you think back, I think, 35 minutes ago to about an hour?
Yep.
There's a group of lawyers that are now suing, saying that it violates Title IX, and that's the situation that I'm happy I don't have to fight for one way or the other, because if you just want to take the facts for surface level, without college football, guys, none of this is actually happening.
Yep.
So it's going to be a really interesting thing to kind of see how this all settles down. Iowa, of course, getting a $20.5 million kind of budget. The Swarm is still going to be alive and active. Brad Heinrichs has kind of explained that on our board as well. That's kind of a whole different dicey situation as well. But if people thought that, things were going to start to clear up, I hate to say it, I still think we're about a year away from getting any sort of consistency. But at least we're seeing some sort of tangible progress into what's going to be quote unquote normal.
So Iowa picks up on the football side of things, a new commitment, Sawyer Jazerski from up in Edina, Minnesota, Minneapolis area kid from the rich suburbs over there of Edina. But just looking at this recruiting class, Carson Nielsen, would it be fair to say the Waterloo offensive lineman, he's kind of the headliner of this class? I think things are shaping up in this new era of high school recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's without a doubt. I mean, I still think that Kirk Ferentz and Tyler Barnes and them need to hold down the in-state lines and at least the Midwest lines. I mean, look at Illinois right now. Illinois is not in the slouch. I think they're a college football playoff dark horse contender with what they have going into the season. But I think Iowa's done a nice job. I think it's good to kind of pick up that defensive line commit. I think the offensive line's looking very strong in that. I still like Cash Correa, the California quarterback. I love his quick release. I think Tim Lester thinks there's a lot of tools to be able to work with there. But recruiting is another thing, guys, that's going to get a lot more complicated than it is simple, because obviously with the dollar figures going around, the information, everything's going to change on a dime. I mean, I think Sean's job has gotten infinitely harder. A lot of recruiting guys across the network and across the country. But I do think also that, Kirk Ferentz and Ben McCollum kind of have the same mantra to some extent when they think about when it comes to NIL. They don't want to get in bidding wars, guys. They're going to look for guys that are right for their program and pay them what makes sense. And I'm still of the belief that you should be able to, you should be paying the guys that stay on your roster and that are impact players more than a potential incoming freshman. I think that's one way we kind of limit this sort of not damage, but this little bit, bidding wars with everything else going on right now. So recruiting is going to get a lot more complicated. I still think that Iowa's going to try to stick to its culture, its values, the developmental aspects. And I do think that their approach to this situation is, hey, look, you can make a lot of money while playing for us. We're going to help to develop you. But I do think that there's one common message that does span back to when Kirk Ferentz took over in 1999. Look for that second NFL contract. That's what's ultimately going to be the generational wealth that you want to create now. For college stars that don't have a potential Sunday future, of course you're going to want to go get as much money as you can to at least give you that little bit of head start in life as well. But I am going to be very interested to see if Iowa takes the recruiting more nationally, or if they are just going to put an extra emphasis in the Midwest guys and the Iowa guys, because with the television contracts, with playing coast to coast, with all of this settlement money that's being awarded to each Power 5 school, you can afford to recruit nationally now. And if you don't, there's a real risk that you're going to get left behind the dust.
Just back to our Beach Boys theme. Somebody just texted me, round, round, get around, I get around. Pretty good one. Got to be on the list.
God only knows number one.
Okay.
I'm not.
All right.
I'm not.
You're not going to budge.
Nope.
Not going to budge. All right. Back to the Hawks. Scott Pioli is now part of the staff in a kind of a general manager type of role. Is that how you read it, David? What can we expect from he was there in the beginning of the Patriots. I know that there's some folks that are knocking the resume. Yeah, it didn't work out with the Chiefs, but it sure did with New England. Granted, they had number 12. That didn't hurt. Your thoughts on Pioli and what his role is going to be? Do you have a grasp of that?
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of interesting you brought that up because the message board reactions have been about the same when it comes to that. But I do think when you look at the college model, guys, you can't knock anybody with NFL experience regardless.
Right.
He's a guy who's been in the NFL for a long time, and when we kind of look at the future of college athletics, it's trending more like the NFL. I mean, Tyler Barnes, who I still believe Tyler Barnes is more so the general manager more than anything else. I do think Scott Pioli is going to deal with a lot more of the logistics of things, a lot more of the NIL direct correlation when it comes to that. I do think that Tyler Barnes is going to have those initial conversations, but I do think he's going to stick to more of the football side, and Pioli's going to stick to more of the dollars and cents value. And as far as, what guys can get in the NIL, I mean, just kind of budgeting out everything. I think the two are going to work very close together. I'm still trying to nail down the exact specifications of what he's going to do, but I do know that I don't believe it's like a full-time role. It's not so much a general manager. It is a little bit, but I would say much more of a consultant than anything else. But again, you get a guy with a lot of NFL experience who has had some success in the NFL. Forget about the blimp. We don't need to see the Kansas City Chiefs blimp again about the fire Pioli. This is a smart move by Beth Getz and the University of Iowa. Just ultimately, you need as much professional experience. And ultimately, you need guys with a lot of professional experience that can put a lot of these high school players and their parents' minds at ease. Because I'm of the belief to where if you're a college program right now and you can take away power from the agents and put more power in the high school players and parents, I think that's a lot safer of a bet depending on where we're kind of trending right now.
David, on the football on the field. So summer workouts, we saw the basketball team get going. Football team's going to do that. Can you tell us what we always hear about these off-season workouts, right? Coaches aren't around, but do you know what they actually can do? Where do they have to go to the park? Can they do it at the football complex? And secondly, where's Mark Granowski as he works his way back from that shoulder surgery?
Yeah, from what I've been told, Mark Granowski's basically 100%. I mean, he's throwing the ball. He's getting chemistry with his receivers. He's working out. It's not going to surprise me if he's elected team captain this year, guys. Like, just from everything I've been told behind the scenes, every time we've talked to players and coaches, one thing that really stood out to me, what Kirk Ferentz said about Granowski, is the fact that he's the guy who went out there and earned the leadership in the weight room and in the film room. He was not able to be on the field. He was not throwing the football throughout spring practice, but he's the guy who immediately went in there, gravitated toward Leicester's offense, spoke up in meetings, and has been really kind of diligently working with every position group. That tells me that's the guy who's won 49 games in college, right? That's the guy who's been around the block a few times or two. So I think for the most part, when it comes to summer workouts, they're allowed to do some team-oriented activities. Obviously, they have their team meetings. They have their morning weight room routine, sometimes 2-a-days. But as far as mostly on the field work, they do typically go to like a high school stadium. They do typically go to a park. But the resources are limited. The on-field coaching is limited. But if you really want to be able to put in a lot of work in the summer, guys, you're going to be able to put in a lot of work in the summer. And with Granowski coming back from shoulder surgery, feeling pretty good, and with a whole new receiving core, they've been really, really adamant and hard at work immediately. And another guy I'm going to throw in there, I'm looking at Reese Andersey. I think Reese Andersey and Mark Granowski could have a really, really good connection this year, especially in the red zone. And I'll tell you, I don't think Iowa's had a true red zone receiver since what? Brandon Smith? Am I missing anybody, or was it Brandon Smith?
Yeah,
that's
probably
kind of the first guy from a wide receiver standpoint. That's who I'm thinking of.
Going to be telling to see if Granowski makes the cut to go to Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days. I think that'll speak volumes because that is anti-Ferentz to this point, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. And you haven't seen the list, right? We don't know who's going with him at this point, do we?
We will probably know within the next 2 or 3 weeks. They typically wait till closer to Media Day to actually announce that. I'm going to look at Aaron Graves as probably being a guy, maybe Xavier Wampa. And then I do think it'd be a good idea to throw Mark Granowski in there.
I do too.
I'm not gonna be surprised if he doesn't. I mean, I just kind of avoid the offseason surgery questions and get guys who have kind of been a part of the program for a while. But I do think with this kind of renowned excitement about Iowa actually possessing the football and scoring touchdowns, I would personally love to see Granowski. But again, sometimes it's not about the Iowa media and what they potentially might ask. It's about the other schools that are there and the other reporters that are there.
They want Granowski.
Just kind of keeping him out of the limelight.
They want to talk to the quarterback.
Have you guys met Kirk Ferentz?
I know he's not going to do it. I'm just saying he should.
Think about what Cade McNamara had. Cade McNamara gone to Big Ten Media Days when he transferred from Michigan.
Yeah.
Who do you think's taking over that press conference? Now, again, I know it's FCS to FBS,
right.
South Dakota State to Iowa, but
Yeah.
I all know Michigan guys will have taken that over without question.
Talking about off-season workouts for the football team. What have you heard about the basketball team? Saw those videos, and you're looking for every little nugget that you can coming out of it. Heard anything about
numbers? We've seen numbers.
Yes, we got the numbers for the guys, including 27 for Trevin Urach. I need to have a talk with him. 27, what a weird number for a center. But what have you heard for the guys on the hoop side of things, their off-season workouts?
Bennett Sturts is really good at basketball.
Okay.
No, it's been a pretty successful first couple weeks. I mean, I think Ben McCollum's kind of really done a good job of establishing his tempo, his culture, and something that's been repeated to me about 3 or 4 times in off-season conversations. Everything Iowa does, Ben McCollum has a thorough and detailed explanation of why they're doing it and how it will help them get better. And that's such a minor detail that might get overlooked, but he is going in depth into every little thing that they do. Bennett Sturts is playing a little bit more off the ball. Alvaro Fulgaris, who, by the way, is going to represent Spain in the under-20 Euro basketball tournament championship starting next month. Alvaro is going to play some 5 this year, and I do think he's going to need to put on about 10 to 15 more pounds, so I think that strength and conditioning program will be tested pretty early. But if he can play the 5 and Iowa has a little bit of versatility there, Iowa's going to have a dangerous spot-up 5 shooter, and that pick-and-pop situation with Bennett Sturts, with Alvaro Fulgaris, and then Brendan Housen in the wing, I mean, I do think there's a lot of versatility there. Personally, I'd love to see Cooper Koch start at the 4. I think that kid is still full of potential, but as far as establishing culture, establishing tempo, I think he's done a really good job of that, Ben McCollum and company. But I'm also going to say this, and again, it's way early. We need to see how things play out. They're playing faster than they did at Drake, guys. Everybody's worried about that slow pace. I really don't think they're going to play like they did last year against Drake. I don't know how many times Ben McCollum has said it. I don't know how many more times people need to hear it before they believe it or if they need to see it. But I do think that they are going to play faster than they did at Drake. So let the Lickwire days go. It could be a pretty exciting brand of basketball, I think.
When will McCollum let the media come in and see his program in these summer workouts or talk to the head coach? I would have thought that maybe we would have something a date by now that when that's going to happen. But have we seen anything?
We have not, but I do think it'll be probably during the Iowa basketball camps or maybe a little bit after. I think year one, they're going to take things a little bit more closer to the vest because they want to have as much time as possible to kind of get that new program established, get everything underway. I think they're going to put out more multimedia content than they have in the past. But I'm with you. I'd love to be able to talk to Ben McCollum. I think he's done a really good job on the PR tour. But I also want to talk to Phil Garris. I want to talk to Housen. I want to talk to Sturts. There's a lot of storylines we have not hit. But I do think that Iowa basketball has been pretty busy in their own right that we kind of have to say, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
When we can get it, we'll take it. And on the flip side of it, too, Jan Jensen's going to let us into 4 different practices.
Love it.
This summer for a total of 4 hours. So we get one of those times with Ben McCollum and company. I'm going to be thrilled with it. But I'm sitting back right now and I'm relaxing. But as far as we know, when we know, I'll be sure to pass it along to you, and we'll get back on and we'll do it.
One more basketball note. Speaking of Fool Garris coming in from Robert Morris, there's another Robert Morris transfer. There's been some rumors about Josh Omojafo. I'd probably have pronunciation dead wrong. Anyway, a kind of scoring guard from Robert Morris. He is still in the portal. Any insight into him and maybe another piece for McCollum's squad?
So I do know that Ben McCollum and company, they're still looking in the portal. They're still looking at international prospects. I don't want to say they've given up on a center, but I do think that that comes with a hefty price tag, and I think they're willing to overlook that right now. I do know they'd want another scoring guard or another ball handler to move Bennett Sturts off the ball a little bit more. As far as the Robert Morris transfer, there's reason to keep close eye on it.
Okay.
Nothing's done.
Yeah.
Nothing's done. But you might want to keep a little attention to detail on that.
David Eicholt, HawkeyeInsider.com, part of 24/7 Sports. Well done, David Eicholt. Thank you, as always, for doing this, and we will talk to you in the weeks ahead. Thanks, David.
Thanks, guys. Always appreciate you. Take care.
Changing environment in college athletics. Thanks again to David Eicholt for joining us. 24/7 Sports, HawkeyeInsider.com. So what does this new world mean for the Iowa Hawkeyes? That's next. Locked On Hawkeyes. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, buzzer beaters, fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop the closer it gets to tip-off, with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees. Gametime is a total game changer. I was just on the app taking a look, and you can find all kinds of different things. There's zone deals offering 60% off in great sections. They already got tickets up for Iowa games this season at Kinnick Stadium. What I love about the app personally, see what you're going to see inside the stadium, inside the arena, the exact view before you buy. The app makes it super simple. 2 taps and you're done. And with the Gametime guarantee, you know you're getting the best deal. If you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Trent kind of back with you one final time. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. And a shout out to you everydayers, the people that are with us each and every day. A big thank you to all of you. So the big question that is here, and we are going to tackle this a little bit deeper as the week goes on, is what does this House settlement case mean for the University of Iowa and the Iowa Athletic Department? So this $20.5 million, the salary cap, if you will, how is that going to influence the way that Iowa does things? The hope and the belief is that this is going to be something that is going to create a smaller divide between the haves and the have-nots of college athletics, that there's still going to be the things that are there before, right? Location, access to athletes, those kind of things that are never going to change. Look, Florida is always going to be in a great spot. Ohio State is always going to be in a great spot. Proximity to players matters always. That's not going to change. But as it pertains to the financial part, the hope is that this is going to close the gap, that there's not going to be these significant differences between what Iowa can offer and other athletic departments. That the NIL game as we know it has changed, where it goes from what it morphed into, pay for play, and goes back into a more simple way of looking at the dynamics and the way that this is going to be set up. However, I will warn you this part, and I believe this is the way, unfortunately, that it's going to go. That we are just going to go back to the era that it was beforehand, where these payments are going to be under the table. JT Toppin at Texas Tech is making $4 million this year, reportedly. Well, that is going to be flagged by this new NIL Go program, and they're going to say, no, that is not fair market value for that athlete. So instead of getting that $4 million, he's going to get $500,000. Well, that $3.5 million is still going to be there. People are still going to be willing to pay. And what's it going to do? That's right. It's going to go right back under the table like it once was. It'll be the backroom deals. It'll be the shadiness. It'll be meeting in hotel rooms. It'll be meeting with the AAU coach. It'll be all those different things. And we will probably be back to where we once were, where there'll still be payments. There'll still be commercial deals. There'll still be real NIL, but there'll also be real shadiness. That's probably where we're going. Again, we'll dive deeper into this as the week goes on. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Your team every day. We got you covered here on the Locked On Network. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.